Hello everyone. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a simple homemade welding machine using an old broken soldering iron. Now I'm going to take it apart to check the inside and see which parts are still usable. So, what's special about this welding machine? First of all, it's super cost effective. No need to spend money on an expensive machine. Just repurpose items you already have at home. It's cheap and fun, just the way DIY projects should be. Due to long exposure to a humid environment and poor storage, the surface became rusty. Next, I'll carefully unscrew the outer casing, slowly loosening each screw so that the parts don't get damaged. Once the cover is off, I'll be able to see the internal wire more clearly and check whether the electrical connections are still intact, or if any wires are burnt, broken, or need to be replaced. Now I'm going to remove all the internal wiring, taking out each piece carefully so that only the outer shell and the main frame of the soldering iron remain. I'm going to work on the wiring for it now. You should choose a thicker copper core wire to avoid using thin wires, as they can overheat and cause power loss. You can adjust the temperature yourself by changing the wiring or adding a resistor. It's super flexible for small welding tasks. I'll thread the electrical wire through the top part of the soldering iron. Now I'm going to reattach the handle. Since this is a mini welding machine, thick electrical wires aren't necessary. I'll use this type of wire and it will work just fine. The key is to secure the connections and properly insulate the contact points to prevent electrical leakage. It looks like the soldering tip I'm going to use is a bit smaller than the hole in the soldering iron. So I'll need something to insert as a spacer to make it fit securely. I'll take an empty soda, can then cut out a piece of its aluminum shell. I'll trim it down and bend it into shape. Aluminum is lightweight, easy to cut and shape, yet still strong enough to hold parts firmly in place. It also resists rust and corrosion, which makes it durable over time. In this case, the aluminum piece works as a spacer and helps secure the soldering tip tightly, ensuring stable contact when the machine is in use. I need to drill a hole so I can connect the electrical wire. There are different types of screws, some longer and some shorter. The screws on this machine are quite short, so I'll need to add a spacer to make sure everything is tightened securely. Now I'll fit in the first soldering tip, which will be a rivet. I've finished grinding the tip so that it's a little sharper. Sharpening the tip is important because it helps concentrate the heat onto a smaller point, making the soldering process more precise and efficient. Steel rivets are a good choice because they withstand high temperatures. Next, for the second type of soldering tip, I'll use a battery core. I've got quite a few old batteries lying around, perfect for experimenting with this mini soldering setup. Instead of throwing away, I'm going to repurpose the inner core of the battery and turn it into a soldering tip, a clever way to give new life to old materials. I'll carefully extract the inner core from one of this battery. This core is usually made from conductive metal, and its size makes it perfect for precise soldering tasks. Once the casing is removed, I'll trim and shape the core to fit our soldering iron connection. It's a great way to recycle and repurpose parts that would otherwise go to waste. And just like that, we've turned it into a working soldering tip. To complete the wiring, I'll attach an alligator clip to the other end. It makes the connection quick, secure, and easy to detach when needed. I'll add another wire to connect from a negative terminal. This will complete the circuit and allow current to flow properly to the soldering tip. For this wire, I'll attach alligator clips to both ends. That way, it's easy to connect and disconnect from both the power source and the device. Now I'll start working with the rivet tip. For the power source, I'll be using a standard motorcycle battery. It's a 12V lead-acid battery, powerful enough to heat up the soldering tip and stable for small electronics work. This type of battery is easy to find, rechargeable, and delivers consistent current, which makes it perfect for our DIY soldering project. Now it's time to put our DIY soldering tool to the test. I'll begin by trying to solder onto this razor blade, which is thin and metallic, making a good challenge for the tool. When soldering with a rivet tip, it heats up very quickly and reaches a high temperature. You can clearly see the metal glowing slightly and feel the strong heat radiating from it. As soon as it touches the solder, the tin melts instantly and flows smoothly, showing that the rivet conducts heat efficiently and gets hot enough for effective welding. Once it's finished, the razor blade is firmly attached to the soldering tip and holds in place securely. The surface looks neat and even, with the blade aligned straight, so it can conduct heat properly. Overall, the piece feels solid and ready for testing. showing that the homemade setup works as intended. Next, I'll remove the rivet tip and replace it with a battery core. I carefully slide the core into place. Making sure it fits tightly and stays stable inside the holder. Once secured, this new tip is ready for heating and testing, allowing me to compare how well it performs against the rivet tip. The core heats up strongly and transfers that heat directly to the blade. The razor blade quickly reaches high temperature, hot enough to melt solder as soon as it makes contact. This setup gives both wide surface heating from the blade and concentrated heat from the core, making the soldering process fast and effective. Now I'll test it by soldering a broken power cord connection. First, with the heated tip, I apply a little solder to tin the wires before joining them together. As soon as the tip touches, the solder melts smoothly and flows into the joint. Bonding the wires firmly. After cooling, the connection feels solid and secure, restoring the power cord to working condition. Finally, I'll punch a hole into the plastic cover so the soldering tip can fit through neatly. This step also helps keep the tip fixed in place and prevents it from wobbling during use, giving the homemade soldering machine a more solid and finished look. In conclusion, I've successfully repurposed an old broken soldering iron into a simple homemade welding tool. By trying out different tips such as a rivet, a battery core, and even a razor blade, I was able to test how each one performs and see their strengths. The modifications, like adding aluminum spacers and drilling the plastic cover, helped the tool become more stable and practical. Although it a DIY project, the final result works effectively for small repairs, showing that with a bit of creativity and recycling, Old materials can be turned into something useful again.